Alright, this is a really short video just covering what I'm planning to take into the Day 1 Desert Perpetual Raid Race in hopes of getting the world's first clear. This video is specifically catered to hunters, as that's what I'm going to be playing, so if you're looking for Warlock or Titan suggestions, unfortunately I'm not your guy. To be completely honest, I really have like two loadouts for this raid. My main loadout is the Heart of Inmost Light Sudurachne's Facade class item, and this is going to be for non-boss encounters and pre-damage on bosses, and then for the actual damage phase on a boss, I'm going to be swapping to Celestial Nighthawk. My Heart of Inmost Light and Sudurachne build has 70 melee, and I have this 70 melee to get my melee back from a dodge of 140 grenade with 2 font mods, and this way I increase my grapple melee damage to get that bonus 65%, and grapple melee is very strong with that bonus damage, and which you can pair with a 1-2 punch shotgun. And I'm also aiming for about 70 class ability so that I get my class back at a reasonable pace. The whole point of this loadout is to spam abilities to deal with large groups of enemies, and I pair this with Fast of Purpose, Protection, Hope, and Mending. Normally, I would have Fast of Dawn on, but for this specific loadout, I actually have Mending instead of Dawn, and that's because I'm not dealing so much weapon damage, so I'm not that concerned with how much damage my weapons are doing. I don't need that Radiant benefit, and Mending is going to heal me on every single grapple melee kill. Obviously, if I come into a situation where I do need to use my weapons more, I would either lower my grenade stat to around 70 and increase my weapon to around 100, or I would swap off of Fast of Mending back to Fast of Dawn so that I not only get the bonus damage on majors and minors, but I also get that Radiant for the extra 20% bonus damage as well. I don't think that this is going to be the case in this raid, and that's because that would require a decent amount of long-range gameplay. And that tends to not occur in raids. I've put a dim link for my running loadout in the description. For my damage loadout, I've got 140 super with 60 points from the font mods, and then I have as high weapon as possible to increase my heavy weapons damage against a boss. I'm not using any weapon font mods, but rather I'm actually opting for the 3 surges for whatever my boss weapon may be, depending on which ammo type I'm using for the boss. My dim link for the Nighthawk loadout is also in the description. In regards to weapons I'm planning to bring in, unfortunately Choir of One got disabled, which was going to be my go-to, so my current plan is to go back to the old reliable Kvostov with a Lotus Eater or Velocity Baton. I know Lotus Eater and Velocity Baton have ammo issues, but as long as you're using your Kvostov as well, it's actually not as bad as you may think that it is. The other choice that I'm looking at right now is Tanasha's Legacy with Sunshot and a machine gun for those ad clear encounters. Now for boss damage, the 3 main options that I've been looking at are Rocket Spam with Hezen Vengeance, Queenbreaker's Bow, and Lord of Wolves. Queenbreaker and Lord of Wolves are our initial go-tos for damage, however both suffered from a lot of ammo issues. Queenbreaker only gets like 2 shots per brick, and it had its reserve nerf down to 21, which means that you need about 10 bricks to even fill up your Queenbreaker, which depending on the boss encounter may pose an issue. If it's a close range boss fight, Lord of Wolves is going to be our go-to. But Lord of Wolves also suffers from the same issue of it's pretty annoying to get full ammo for. It's less annoying than Queenbreaker because you only need special ammo, but it's still pretty annoying. Rocket Spam is much more ammo friendly, but always poses the risk of having someone blow themselves up during damage, which is always a concern that I take into account during Day 1 raids. But that is our big damage option. If I exhaust my entire main damage ammo source, and with Outbreak Perfecting also getting disabled, which is quite annoying, my next plan for damage is to use Final Warning. While it's unlikely to proc, the Artifact mod will increase Final Warning's damage by 35%, and Final Warning is already a super strong primary damage option, and it fills your super energy very fast. It's a very underrated weapon, and actually something that I've brought into the raid for the last 3 raid and dungeon races as a just in case. Mask of Bacchus is another thing people have been talking about, and I'm not going to use it. I think you're kind of trolling if you're using it. One, I hate doing loadout swaps in Day 1 raids, because I just don't like doing them in unfamiliar environments, and I don't want to swap from Hoyle to Nighthawk to Bacchus, and on that swap from Nighthawk to Bacchus, I'm also going to be nuking all of my ability energy because I'm now on an Arc or a Stasis Super rather than Golden Gun. You could pose the counter argument of, well, just go straight from Hoyle to Bacchus and ignore the Nighthawk altogether. But I feel like being on an Arc or a Stasis Super is kind of just trolling for that bonus damage. I'm not planning to use it, and I doubt the damage checks in the raids are strong enough that require you to use it. I could be proven wrong, but I'm not planning to use Bacchus. I'm also a huge believer in just using things that you're comfortable with, and I've not used Bacchus since Beyond Light launched, and I'm not trying to learn this entire Bacchus thing in 3 days before the raid. Other weapons that I'm planning to bring in are an Eager Edge Sword and a Lethanim for Traversal sections, as well as a Strand loadout for those Traversal sections as well. I've also got the Ill Omen and Ergo Sum in case I'm deciding to do a duo caster frame sword situation, as well as the Omniscient Eye and Praedyth's Revenge for any sniper damage. I've got other weapons on my in my vault if needed, including a Shoot to Loot Trace Rifle and the Shoot to Loot Vulpecula and the Multimac. But honestly, with all the items being disabled, I'm kind of just set into the Kvostov Lotus Eater machine gun for non-boss encounters and the Celestial Nighthawk Rocket Spam or Queen Breaker for boss damage. Again, sorry, very short video. I hope you get some ideas for what to run if you're on a hunter.